to your point, and what I added on to, how many people agree that action movies now are often framed too kind of close and edited too frenetically to see what's going on? Almost everybody. So why do they keep doing this?
Because we cheer for it in the theaters. I mean,
well, I think it's video games for the generation. I think it's maybe it's that.
I can see what's going on in that video game.
you can zoom the camera out.
Yeah, I mean, because I just recently, my wife and I and my daughter were watching the James Bond series, Casino Royale, right? Recent, edited by David Hirsch. You can always get a good sense of where everybody is in those action scenes. Then we watch Quantum of Solace, and like my friend Mike says, it's like having a tin can over your head, somebody banging on with a hammer flying. Those are the action scenes in that. You know, it's like, okay, I'm disoriented now, I have no idea what just happened, but I guess James Bond won. You know. Anyway, that's my own little personal rant. Anyway, I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to.
The Golden Gate Bridge attack was a head and some cables.
Yeah.
And then they finally cut back to show the search counter, but we needed that larger picture.
Well, I have here one of my notes here. I would have liked the larger picture in more ways than one. Larger picture in terms of what you were talking about, in terms of knowing what was going on worldwide and what was going on, and also pull the camera back a bit so we can see what's going on. This guy has had his hand up for a while back here.
Just a couple things. One, you were talking about sequels. If you get on IMDb, they've got Pacific Rim 2 already.
Yeah, I think it all depends on how well it is over the next few days.
The other thing is, I agree with you a lot on things, especially with predictability. I was like, okay, this is going to happen next. However, if you saw, I was one of those 4 stars, because I grade on a curve here. I'm not comparing this to Citizen Kane, Godfather. I'm not even comparing it to like The Dark Knight Returns. I'm comparing this to Monster X Strikes Back, Final Wars, Gino, the Transformer films. Compared to those, this is a godsend.
I think that's an excellent point, because I'm in the 3-star category because, you know, like I said, I take all your criticism, but I was like,
he's definitely completely right on everything he said.
yeah, but at the same time, I'm like, well, okay, this is not the movie I would have made. However, this is the movie I'm being shown and how well to do with what it is attempting to do. And from what I understand, Del Toro said, you know, I just want this thing kind of to be lighthearted, and I don't know if it was lighthearted, but it was, you know, it wasn't full of doom and gloom. Real quick before I go to the next question, how many people hung around to the very, very, very end of the credits? Not everybody, because to me that was worth it right there when it was dedicated to Ishiro Honda and Ray Harryhausen at the very end.
Why I thought in deference to Ishiro Honda, Ichi Tsuburaya, or I don't know what, maybe because Honda was a wonderful director to him, and that's great, but if he's dedicated to monster artists, I wonder why he would eliminate or not, or exclude, or not consider Ichi Tsuburaya.
I guess, who knows, maybe it was a coin toss, but to me, it's thematically, and getting into the idea of all the nations of the earth banding together, that is an Ishiro Honda theme through and through.
I mean, that represents 2 genres. That represents, you know, Japanese cinema. We all know who Ishiro Honda is, and that kind of encompasses that whole thing like that. And then you have Ray Harryhausen, who did a lot of the American movies, Wanji, and you know, things like that. So maybe that was just trying to cover both worlds real quick.
If I may, I'll agree with that element of Honda's filmmaking, but at the same moment, Honda often considered his monsters to be tragic, misunderstood creatures, and from this movie I got the sense that the kaiju were very sentient and were actually the instigators in the conflict.
That's true, that wasn't very Honda-esque, I'll say. Well, it was, I mean, certainly the original Godzilla, I keep reading about it in the original Godzilla that at certain showings, even back in the 50s, that people were cheering on the monster. And somehow I find that hard to believe, because even when I was little, I just, you know, Godzilla was just presented so, in such negative terms in there. When you see the mother or the 2 children, whatever, I don't remember ever rooting for Godzilla in the first one. But certainly in the other movies, you do, even if he is the bad guy. So, anyway, that was my take.
I think that Rodan would be a better example of a misunderstood monster.
Absolutely.
Though it is the one that actually ate people. This gentleman here.
I heard a rumor that Del Toro, about going on about sequel, he was kind of wanted include the crossover with the Godzilla.
Yeah. He answered a Q&A regarding that, and he said he would love to see it happen. There are no plans for it right now. He isn't imagining it right now because he doesn't know the direction that Edwards is taking on it. And Godzilla, Edwards has said he wants a grounded approach with it, whereas Pacific Rim was very, very high sci-fi. And that's a part of why I loved Pacific Rim, honestly, if I can jump the track here, was that in a day and age where even the Transformers are using hot lead, I loved seeing the plasma guns.
It seemed very show-like. I mean, that was, I think, where a lot of people enjoyed it. You don't get the show. Cloverfield wasn't show style. I mean, it was supposed to be very grounded, very real. A lot of people miss the older style monster fights, in-your-face action, things like that. So maybe that's where Pacific Rim scored big with everybody.
I take one over here, and then you right there.
Part of what I really liked about this was the creative idea, like the mind melding and stuff. I had never.
The Vulcans.
I don't watch Star Trek. But one thing I kind of had a problem with, I wish they did more with the Category 5 kaiju, because they really made a big deal. Oh, this is a Category 5. They didn't.
And then it took less to kill that than it did like the Category 2s and 3s.
Well,
that Category 4 monster that grew the wings, I felt that could have been a fun monster. That was my favorite one.
Honestly, after the Hong Kong fight, I was just sitting there thinking, wait a minute, the movie's still going?
Yeah, and to that point too, I just kind of I would have been okay. That being the finale, and to set the big finale under the sea, I want to see more cities getting knocked over. Setting it under sea, there's no sense of scale anymore. It's just it could be.
Well, that's the other thing I wanted to say. When you say pull the camera back, see more action, I mean you have such large scale creatures happening that you can't get a sense of scale from standing on a bridge and just seeing an arm. If you pull that camera back and you see that monster as large as it is, we always see pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge taken from helicopters, taken from planes. And when you throw a monster next to that, you have that sense of scaling.
Absolutely.
You see how big it is. That's something I meant to touch on there.
And part of I understand that the thinking behind that style of filmmaking and talking to filmmakers who like it, it puts you in the middle of the action. It's like it's happening to you. You wouldn't be able to see all that well. You would if you were standing up on a hill. So you can always cut in that perspective as well. And I always had this envision scene if I were to make a Godzilla movie. There'd literally be people sitting on the side of a hill watching all this go down, inside the city. You'd be, like sitting there munching popcorn, drinking sodas and stuff, watching this military battle. What a great perspective to have, Anyway, and now let me get this back. I said Anna for a while.
I missed most of this because I was with my wife for this. I don't know if you talked about it. What was each of your favorite parts of Pacific Rim?
We haven't really specifically addressed that, but I can say it was that dockyard battle. I can't remember which monster it was, but it came about 2/3 of the way through the movie, and it could have ended there, and I would have been happy when they finally. And everybody, even the 20-30 people in the theater, I imagine you guys had a great crowd at the Pickwick, but people were cheering and clapping at that point.
I love the scenes in Sydney just because they were in broad daylight.
Also the bit with the little girl, the flashback with the little girl. I thought that was well done. Yeah, just the little girl. The actress was good, and that whole it was in the daylight.
Otachi was my favorite kaiju, however.
And then you've been up for a little.
Thank you for the insight, but the perspective. I think that the opening shots when you see the monster of the Golden Gate Bridge, I like the fact that it's so large you can't fit on the screen. I think that was, but you lose the sense. The sea battles were a yawn. You just lose the perspective.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question though. Could you ask the audience if they could hear it, if they like the soundtrack, the music?
I will ask that because that's my thing, right?
Okay.
Anyway, you asked everybody's opinion. You said yours, but what bits did you like?
I mean, there was a few things that I did like, and to be honest, I don't really have a favorite part per se. My favorite parts was the interaction between Idris Elba and the main character. Just the back and forth between them was very funny. Like when he turned around and he told the Scottish pilots, and he's like, "You shut up!" That was classic. I like that. That's something I would say.
Actually, mine was Check His Pulse.
That came at the end of that sequence. I think I was talking about it.
Yeah, check his pulse.
That was where they obliterated it, and you had a sense of, yeah, come on, let's see them do it. Again, if they'd given the monsters a little bit more personality and set them up as more of a threat, like, how are we going to stop them? To me, that scene would have had so much more emotional.
You didn't like the fact that they felt like they were the clones of each other?
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. Speaking of building up the monsters, I feel like they didn't touch up enough upon because watching it, you get the sense that the monsters, the EMP pulse, one of the characters actually mentions it's not a defense mechanism, it's a weapon. They're designing their kaiju to counteract the Jaegers, and I feel like that wasn't expanded enough, I guess. I would have liked to have seen more high sci-fi abilities for the monsters. I wanted to see death rays out of their eyes.
And who was their leader? I mean, it looked like Sauron's eye was was this like a tie-in with that's where Sauron went? I mean, what was it? Was that a black hole against a big sun? I mean, I don't know. I was kind of confused about that.
Well, that may be where the sequel goes.
But going to your point that why we didn't see their side, isn't that the whole point? We're the part of the humans, and we want to get in with these Jaeger pilots and get with them. We're using the same information they would have, so of course we don't know why they're clones. We don't know what their motivations are. We don't know any of that stuff because they're the enemy, and we don't know that stuff. So if they don't know it, we shouldn't know it either, because that helps us get into the stories. Like, okay, why are they doing this? Well, I don't know, but they're doing it.
I agree entirely, but what I meant was I would have liked to have seen more biological weapons on part of the kaiju.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's two different ways. Some people go in the movie, they want every single thing explained away. And other people, I like it when it's like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, 2001 is the perfect example. Literally, the point of the movie is you don't know what the hell's going on. That's the point. The alien intelligence is going to be so far different than beyond this, we won't understand it.
It's the Jaws. It's the Jaws creature, metaphorically. You don't see the creature, you just know it's there. That's all, and that's how you get it.
I really felt they missed a golden opportunity. At the end, they had like weird aliens. They really could have made it like a super being, like they do or something.
So by having it just like another world, you thought it was kind of disappointment? Or was it, what did they say, it was another dimension? A lot of that exposition was shouted and said so quickly, I was like, okay, wait a second, let me make sure I got this.
It was the Crystal Skull aliens coming back. They were interdimensional beings. They were mad at Indy.
The empty skull beings.
You get the impression it was another planet, it was a bridge, so they go from world to world.
And they send the monsters first to soften us up, right?
Just like Independence Day, locusts.
All right, then I'll get to the soundtrack, because that was brought up earlier. We got almost 20 minutes left. How many people really like the music score or paid attention to it? Pay attention to it. How many people thought it? I won't give my opinion because I have a very strong opinion about it.
I want your opinion.
What's that?
We want your opinion.
I will wait. How many people were totally oblivious to it? Okay. And there's somebody here that hated it.
Get out.
I didn't hate it, but it struck me as the typical remote control Hans Zimmer school of scoring minor thirds. That's a score with a beat, and it works. It's effective in the movie. It gets your blood going and everything else. But as a piece of music, it's not particularly interesting. There was, I guess, a theme at the end. To me, whenever they bring in like pop instruments, beats or whatever, you watch the movie in 20 years, it's going to sound so dated. Think about Lady Hawk. You pop that in, and all of a sudden you're not in medieval times anymore. You're in the middle of the 80s. So that always, I'm very opinionated about that. But thank you for giving me an opportunity to get on my soapbox.
See, I myself am a big soundtrack fan. I mean, I wouldn't say I wouldn't have compared it to like Hans Zimmer. Like a lot of Hans Zimmer stuff to me is memorable. Like the Joker's theme, the entire Black Hawk Down score. One of my favorite movies, Backdraft. That score for that's fantastic. But I felt it was just very bland. You know Danny Elfman music when you hear it. You know John Williams music when you hear it. I personally can pick out Hans Zimmer stuff, things like that. It just felt very. It didn't have its own force. It didn't take on music really helps to bring up a movie, and it just kind of seemed like it was just there because